All right. Welcome to Shelf Help. Today we're talking with Ryan Provost, who's joining us from New Jersey. Ryan's the co-founder and CEO of Booz Box Cocktails, a ready-to-drink cocktail brand that was started in New Jersey in the heart of the pandemic by Ryan and his co-founder Norman. And before launching Booz Box, Ryan founded a Brooklyn-based music and event label and has been a longtime video editor, music artist, entrepreneur, and yeah, really set a chat. So with that, let's get into it. So Ryan, just first off, for the listeners that aren't all that familiar with Booze Box Cocktails, just give me the quick lay of the land in terms of the origin story and kind of the why behind the brand, the products, and where listeners can get their hands on them.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam. I appreciate the invite on the podcast. Yeah, Booze Box is a company, an RTD beverage company founded by myself and my business partner Norman during summer of 2020, during the pandemic, right when things were getting started. Yeah, we were living together at the time in Jersey City. We were roommates, and we were sitting around the dinner table, just kind of bouncing ideas off each other, and figuring out a way we could start a business. We landed on Booze Box by that. Norman is the mixologist of the company, and I'm more of the business end. And we kind of just put our heads together and came on this idea to put Norman's cocktails in a box, which originally inspired from a wine box. So that's kind of how we got the idea of box cocktails. And getting to your why, we chose to do boxed cocktails because of the competition in the market. And we kind of found that, the competition in this market is slim to none. Not exactly in the market, but within our niche, being boxed cocktails. So yeah, we landed on that, and we figured it'd be a good route to take, and we could be happier at the end of the day. It's been a long road, a lot of ups and downs, but here we are today, a year in business, and six markets under our belt, and we couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it seems like the majority of RTD cocktail brands are marketed in single serve cans, and Booze Box is served in this 1.75 liter cartons that I believe provides 14 cocktails per package. I was curious, you touched on it a little bit, but in terms of like the thought process, research, et cetera, that led you to decide to go this route versus the more typical single serve can route. Did you and Norman know you wanted to go with the box from the form factor? Like right from the beginning, we know we want to do something different here, or was it a process to get to that decision?
Yeah, no, we didn't know right off the bat that we wanted to go that route. It was kind of just a lot of research and development. We are drinkers, like not, just on the weekends, we would go out for our occasional cocktail out in Hoboken, Jersey City, which is what, filled with cocktail bars and places to drink because there's not much else to do but do that. So yeah, we did a lot of research and development. We would hit liquor stores and see what was on the shelf, and we wouldn't really see any boxes around. So, that's kind of like part of the reason why we wanted to go that route as well. Because the competitive nature of this industry is solely based on cans, and we kind of just wanted to differentiate ourselves. And like I mentioned, we didn't really see much in the way of boxed cocktails on the shelf. So we want to be that first to market type of brand. There's a few other brands out there that are doing what we're doing, but I think we still have some time to really prove ourselves and prove who we are, and our business model, and kind of our brand, our name, which is super important. Having that name and landing on it, and actually, thank God it was available. And that was one thing we were worried about, and that was one of the things, obviously, that we needed to make sure was uh was was a real thing. We had to make sure that the name wasn't taken. So Booze Box landed on it, trademarked it, and just went from there.
Off to the races.
Yeah.
How has that different size and form factor made it easier to differentiate in the eyes of either and or like the on-premise or those off-premise buyers?
Yeah, so that's actually one thing that is in our advantage when we're speaking to distributors and other retailers, being that we're a boxed cocktail and people really love the packaging. It's bright, it's vibrant, it's different. The name really sticks out, and those are two really key factors that come into play when the higher ups at distributors or retailers are making their final decisions. Is that they look at the name, they look at the packaging, and then obviously we send them samples and they taste it, and for the most part, they're blown away. We've had some distributors deny us a fair amount because of the people weren't fans of the taste. They say it's not their vibe. That really comes from more like the beer distributors, really, because they drink beer. and that's what they're more focused on, I guess. So I guess, when we would send them samples, they would kind of just taken off by it, and they weren't really used to the whole kind of RTD taste and the flavor profile and whatnot. So yeah, just getting on their good side from the packaging, and then trying to figure it out from there. In terms of the flavor profile. We still have a lot of things to do. In terms of changes to it. So hopefully we'll be able to land on that perfect taste. But I think we're almost there.
Yeah, that's great. Is there a plan to potentially expand into? Obviously, it seems like the carton, larger serving size format is kind of core to the brand. Is there thoughts or plans to think about exploring other form factors and or serving sizes as well to expand the line?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have plans to um, downsize the packaging to a 500 ml or 330 ml Tetra Pak. So that's actually in our roadmap for the next year, possibly into 2026. Just have to see how this year goes until we start getting that into play. But that is definitely one of our priorities. I think that's going to be where the true volume comes into play, the sales velocity, really. Just having that price point a little bit lower off the shelf for the consumer is going to be really a game changing factor. I think that one of the reasons why some people get chased away is because people are obviously conscious about their spending nowadays. And when they see that 25 and some stores 29.99 price point, they're they're scared. People don't want to spend that much anymore. So getting down to that 4.99 for a single serve off the shelf, it's going to be, yeah, we're excited for it. Yeah, it's going to be game changing, I think.
Yeah, definitely lower barrier to entry, I imagine, for sure, for people to try it for the first time, if nothing else. For other up and coming CBG operators that are in kind of this product ideation stage, considering kind of a unique form factor or serving size is one way to differentiate. There's another one that comes to mind that a buddy out here who has a brand out here in Denver. He's got an ice cream brand. He just launched soft serve in pouches, which I think is like the first time I've seen that. It's like super unique
Wow.
form factor. So I'm saying in terms of other operators that are considering going a similar route in one way to differentiate themselves, based on what you guys have learned, what are a few things they maybe should keep in mind and watch out for to, good or bad learnings you guys have had so far?
Yeah, no, I think we have to watch out for one, the price point. I think the price point is super key. We definitely need to get down to that. As long as we get into the 24 or even under 20 price point for the majority of our retail locations that we're in now, I think we'll be in a good position. But other than that, yeah, I really think that just upping our marketing game, I think a little bit, keeping up with our tastings and just keeping up with our overall operations. It's just me and Norman just running the business right now. We're bringing on a few key key consultants and sales and distribution partners to help us expand. But on top of that, it's really just me and Norman doing our thing, and it's hard sometimes to keep up. So it's really all about just staying focused and staying on top of things, and making sure the distributors are all happy. I think that's one of the most important things in this game.
Outside of the actual form factor, the actual just the look and feel of what you got in the pack, did you guys go with a branding agency like freelancer, some other options? You guys have talent in house, and how did you guys just kind of decide how to work with, and what was that evaluation process look like?
Yeah. So we actually got introduced to somebody through a friend in Jersey City. His name's Kyle Perry. He's based in Florida. He was actually a Hoboken resident for a little while. So we weren't really friends with him at the time, but we actually became close with him ever since we started working with him. We were hopping on calls with him all the time, getting our, just make sure that our packaging was the best it could be. So yeah, we would do our weekly and biweekly calls with him, and just to make sure that our packaging was on point. Yeah, we started off kind of in a weird direction, I guess, off the bat. And it would look nothing like what you see now. There were a couple different variations of it before landing on what it currently is. And that took a few weeks to nail down. So, after we kind of did a little bit of drafting in Photoshop, we landed on this splash that you see, along with the logo only took a couple days. So that was easy. But the splash is what really kind of took a little bit longer. So, from the splash, after we got the design there to what it is today, yeah, we kind of landed on, just manipulating the color a little bit and just getting it a little more vibrant, a little more catchy, for the Gen Z and, the millennial kind of branding, which is what really sells today. So, that's kind of what we wanted to land on. And, I think it came out pretty decent for what it is. We're getting a lot of compliments on it. People seem to love it. So, yeah, I think in the near future, though, we might be considering a rebrand. Nothing too major, but I think just like cleaning it up a little bit, adding a few more details to the box, like some nutrition facts like sugar and things like that, which we didn't add off the bat because we were unsure of TTB. That's a whole nother story. So, but yeah, the legality issues with sugar and what you can actually put on the box is that they'll come back, time and time again if it's not correct. So that was a huge headache getting all that approved by TTB. But
Yeah.
yeah, as it is now, it's the packaging is great, and Kyle Perry, our artist, did a great job at it.
Yeah, it looks really good. Thinking back to way back when, and you're putting together kind of original creative brief that you gave to Kyle, like thinking back to that, what in terms of what you put in that brief, like what do you remember your vision was, or what did you feel like were the most important points you wanted to make sure he called out in the package?
I think some of the main points were, just keeping it really Gen Z, really just capturing the attention of the younger generation. And, when people look at our box, they think of a party in a box, they think of the experience of the box. So that was one of the main things we wanted to make sure that was evident and really key with the design. There were a couple other designs that we kind of tossed around, and it was, like a beach on it with like a sunset, and there were a couple other ones I drafted up with like flowers on it, like that kind of resembled a more like botanical kind of cocktail, like a gin. Like I just it didn't feel right. Some of them, so yeah, like a few of them were just like really off brand, and it was kind of confusing. So I think the splash really just nails down the more like sophisticated and like authentic kind of cocktail drinker kind of packaging. So that's kind of the one of how we landed on it, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes
Yeah.
total sense. If a first time entrepreneur like approach you and said, "Hey, I'm in the process of developing an RTD brand of some kind," anything like a few things that we would tell them to keep top of mind as they go through the similar kind of pack design process that you went with Kyle to, yeah, any kind of learnings you have, you might share with them. Hey, keep this in mind, or you maybe want to avoid this.
Yeah, I would just avoid some of the kind of just random, like for example, like the beach kind of sunset thing that we had on it before. It was kind of like a scenic route that we wanted to put on packaging. I think that route is kind of like not it in a way. I know I've seen some teas out there doing that. Like there's one that just came out called Skimmer, and they have like the scenic like beach whatever picture with a seagull over top and a sun and whatever, just all cool and everything. I guess it's kind of a cool idea. It depends on what kind of drink it is too. At the end of the day, but yeah, a lot of people are doing that, and obviously, yeah, like people like to be outside in the sun drinking a cocktail, which is always great. But it's all about keeping it neutral and keeping the likability, I guess, of the consumer just like focused on you can drink this anywhere, not just the beach. So we want people to be drinking this on the mountain, on a farm, or just at a party, at a tailgate, whatever you can think of, and not just the beach.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Not trying to pigeonhole it in some specific use case.
Exactly.
Like shifting gears a little bit, talking about formulation. What have you guys found to kind of creating? I guess what's been key to create RTD cocktails that really taste amazing? Because it sounds like it's been a bit of a journey for you guys. And what's been like the hardest part? And yeah, what's been key to really for you guys to make it taste that good?
So we went back and forth a few times with our manufacturer, our co-packer, and they're the ones that actually ended up formulating the actual recipes. The recipes first off came from Norman's recipe booklet. So he's a mixologist in Jersey City, Hoboken, and really all over. And we took his recipes from his booklet, and we took his top three, and kind of just made him our top three products off the bat. And what actually Norman did was he created the cocktails, put them in mason jars, and sent them over to our co-packer. And what our co-packer did was kind of taste it, analyze it, and match it as best as they could. And honestly, they did a great job at doing that. I think one of the only small mistakes they made was at the watermelon cooler. They kind of just they did something with the cucumber that just was really funky tasting. So we had to go back and forth with the watermelon cooler a couple times to perfect it. And the other two, I think, were just maybe one change to each. So it wasn't anything major, But yeah, just it's all about, that first taste, really making sure that first taste you get from your samples are exactly what you want, and if they're in the right direction, then all is good. But if they're not, then you're gonna be in a world of hurt, going back and forth, and it's a pain. But just making sure your formulas are where you want them to be off the bat is super key.
Yeah, having a really good tasting product makes
Yeah,
everything else easier.
that's the icing on the cake right there. It's not just the branding, it's not just the logo or the name, but the taste. That's
Yeah.
what people remember.
Are some spirits, have you found, did you guys find, are some spirits harder to work with than others, like vodka versus gin, as an example?
No, they're not like harder, I guess, but they're yeah, because there's a couple gin RTDs coming out, and people seem to be really, really, really liking it. Like Long Drink, for example, they're a gin based RTD, and they're crushing it right now. So I'm really happy that we have a gin cocktail because it's kind of like that odd one out. Some and even rum too. Not many people do rum cocktails either, but it's more like vodka tequila. Like those are the top. People love those two base spirits, and whatever you can think of, a margarita. The number one selling cocktail in the world, I believe it is, and that's a tequila base. So that's actually one of our next products that we're going to be introducing. So we're excited for that. But yeah, like gin, vodka, rum, tequila, all great. All the base spirits we're going to be using. I don't know if we're going to have any plans for other spirits, but yeah, we'll keep with those for now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like, in terms of those first three flavors or SKUs you guys launched with, how did you decide to go about, what flavors and what formulations to launch with first? I know you mentioned it sounded like these are like the three top ones in Norman's booklet. He just found these are the ones that had been most popular in his experience, or how did you guys go about that
Yeah,
process?
no, you nailed it. Those were the top three in his booklet. So yeah, we landed on those. And watermelon, pineapple, strawberry are some of the top three flavors in the drink market, the beverage market alone. So I'm really happy that we landed on those three. And on top of that, they're some of the top selling in Norman's restaurants, bars that he's worked with. So that was another kind of little piece of data that we used to make our final decision.
Yeah, having that point of validation with him
Yeah,
is
for
great.
sure. Because it's a good starting point. It's like obviously you want to go by what the people are enjoying and buying most, even though it's only in Jersey City and Hoboken. And obviously, it's the demographics not the same everywhere. But it's a good starting point to make that final decision.
Yeah, totally. You talked about your co-packer a bit and how you worked really close with him in the formulation. Curious for, up and coming beverage entrepreneurs, like how'd you go about finding your co-packer, and then, was it hard to find one that could really meet your specific spec, quality, flavor, et cetera?
Yeah, so finding our co-packer, oh man, that was an interesting story for us. And that was part of the reason why it took us 4 years to launch. So our first co-packer that we worked with, they were based in Atlanta, Georgia, and oh man, that was a terrible experience. We actually flew down there and met with them, and they had our formulas all drafted up, and everything was ready to go, and we finally got the funding in order, and kind of just ghosted us. Well, yeah, I'll keep that story short. It was really just a ghost, and we just went from there, and we were kind of just stuck in the dark, really, after they did that, and we were looking for another co-packer to fill in their shoes, and that was a tough search. So we just did a little bit of just research online, did a little bit of outreach through friends in our network. We landed on their Meta brand. They're based in Edison, New Jersey. Thankfully, they're local. Norman and I are Jersey guys. Yeah, having them 45 minutes away was super helpful to be able to go and meet with them and their team. But yeah, they did a great job in formulating our recipes. They're doing a great job doing our manufacturing, our co-packing in general. Everything from our packaging to the bag and box concept of and filling everything. Everything went great, and we're on our second run right now with them, and we couldn't be happier with finding them, and thankfully we did, because there's not many manufacturers out there that do bag and box. So having them, kind of pivot from their normal canned beverages that they normally do, and having
Hmm.
them do bag and box for us, that was something that they weren't really familiar with. So they even made the risk in, bringing in the right equipment and kind of training their team and everything to be able to, knock this out. And like I said, they did a great job of doing that.
I mean, it sounds like that might be a bit of like a bit of a moat you guys have in terms of that form factor. If there's not as many options for other people that try to come in and actually be able to bring something to market like that, it sounds like it sounds like a
Yeah.
bit of a moat for you guys, which is cool.
Yep. Totally.
Is it
Totally.
hard to and maybe it wasn't, but was it hard to convince that co-packer to give you the time of day as like an upstart brand with a minimal track record? Probably gonna have like the first run's probably gonna be smaller than some of the bigger clients that they've been working with for a while. That's more established brands, and if so, like how'd you get them excited to work with you guys and give you the time of day?
Man, so they don't have any minimum orders, which was lucky on our part. So that they would have done a 500 case order if we wanted to. So that was super lucky. Other than that, they didn't do bag and box. So that was one of the hurdles that we had to overcome with them and kind of talk them into helping us out. After meeting with the owner over there a couple times, through phone, really, not even on Zoom, or didn't even meet in person before that, but it was mainly just a few phone calls with him and really just talking about our brand and just telling him about the position that we were in and the headaches and nightmares that we went through over the last 3 years. We told him our story and he felt for us. He felt really like, wow, you guys are in a position right now where you need some help, and I think we can be those people. And he came in clutch for us. So we think about that every day, man. If we didn't have them, then I don't know where this brand would be right now, to be honest.
Shifting gears a little bit, when you're thinking back when you was launching in terms of your go-to-market plan when it comes to distribution, did you guys decide to focus more on premise or off premise for launch, or if it was really focused on one or the other? And if so, what was the strategy behind that decision to go with one or the other?
So we were focused on off premise off the bat. We knew like the whole time this is going to be an off premise brand. So that's the route we were going to take, and that's the route that we're still currently on. We were able to lock in a few on premise locations. One of them being Pier 13 in Hoboken. It's a nice outdoor venue with our, they have the tables wrapped and our logos everywhere. And we partnered up with the owner there, and he was able to just get us in. And we have frozen sorry, not mark frozens, along with, we sell the single boxes and the single drinks as well. So we have a couple different variations, which is also good for this venue. And we're just hoping that other venues start catching on. But other than that, we have a couple bars that we sell to, and people are they're seeing what we're doing, but I think it's just going to take a little bit more time for them to really figure it out and figure out the bag and box play at the on premise.
Mm-hmm.
It's don't get me wrong, it's going to be tough, but I think that people are going to start realizing it soon that it's going to be another option for them to hold a product like this at their bar.
Yeah, for sure, totally. I'm sure that single serve option you guys have coming to is going to be a great fit for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's easier for the bartenders. It's convenient. It's cost effective. If you add up the cost of the ingredients compared to what we have in our box, our box, it's way cheaper all in. So no, instead of paying $6-7 for the ingredients and all the other the spirit, everything per drink, you're paying under $2 for ours, and that's where you see the real gains.
What's the distribution footprint look like today in terms of like the markets that you guys in, or channels, number of doors, that kind of stuff? Like where?
Yeah. So the current markets that we're in are New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Florida, California, and Texas. Over the last year, though, since we launched, we were doing self-distribution for New Jersey, New York, Florida, California. And we actually got a distributor for Rhode Island. It was actually a buddy of mine from my college, URI, University of Rhode Island, and we were frat brothers. So he actually reached out to us directly, and wanted to work with us. He saw we were doing a product and wanted to bring us into his portfolio. So yeah, we agreed, and we got into the Rhode Island market, quicker than anticipated, and that was all great. So we're looking forward to another great summer with the Rhode Island market this summer. We have a couple on-premise accounts there, along with a ton of liquor stores throughout the whole state. And then obviously we're going to be focusing on New Jersey and New York pretty heavily. We just locked in a distributor, City Moonlight, for the entire New Jersey, New York markets. So yeah, we'll be focusing heavy on these as well. Florida, we just lock in distribution. Paradise Craft, they're called. They cover the entire market. Texas True is another distributor that we have, and they'll be covering all of Texas. Right now, they're just covering the Total Wine stores that we're in right now. We're in about 5 stores in Texas, so they're dealing with those right now. And we're locking in a couple little liquor stores here and there, but hopefully that starts getting going soon, because Texas is going to be a major market for us.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
then we're still doing self distribution with California, and in talks with other distribution for a couple other smaller markets as well. So yeah, busy and expanding, and yeah, just we're just keeping our foot on the gas here.
Yeah, it's exciting. Only a year, you guys are in that many markets. That's super impressive. Really impressive.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's been a. I don't know. Yeah, we look back at it, and we were like, shit, man, how are we in 6 markets already in 1 year? And it's really just about staying focused, I guess,
Yeah,
and
totally.
really, this is what we do every day, and it's wild, it's tough, it's ups and downs, but you'll get a couple yeses here and there.
Yeah, totally. One thing I often hear seasoned operators in the CPG space in general talk about is balancing the focus between velocity and distribution points, meaning like focusing on how fast your product is moving off the shelf and in the current doors you're in versus getting into as many doors as fast as possible. Like, and that kind of delicate balance between the two. How do you guys think about this?
So I think it's good to focus on very few markets off the bat. So I think that we're strategizing perfectly, honestly. There's a lot of brands that I hear out there that are just moving a little too fast. I know we launched 6 markets in 1 year. I know that that's fast and everything, but some brands that I heard of, in the past, they would expand to 10, 15, 20 markets, in the matter of a year, 2 years, and before they know it, they're in too deep, and there's a lot of work that you have to do after you launch these markets. You don't just launch with them and just have your products sit in their warehouse. You have to hire sales reps. You have to get a team in place. You need to market. You need to get the tastings going. You need to get some events going, influencer marketing. There's so much to it rather than just landing that distributor. And it's tough, sometimes, because you don't realize which distributor you should be going with at the end of the day. Like obviously it's best to focus on the larger markets, which is what we're doing right now. But yeah, like if those little distributors come in every now and then and offer you like, hey, I'm interested in your brand, I want to take you guys on, it's probably best to rethink that and re-strategize and focus on what you're currently in, and get on those shelves in the markets that you're currently in, and focus on those accounts alone. Don't really focus on trying to get in every liquor store or bar or every retail chain that you can think of within that market. Maybe just if you're just starting out, focus on those. You rather total wine chain, if you're in 13 stores, 20 stores, just focus on those for a bit. If you're in buy rights, like we're in a handful of buy rights in New Jersey, like focus on those for a bit and get those sales going, and get people tasting the product, liquid to lips, and making sure they come back for more. Those reorders are important. They're more important than actually landing the distribution partnerships.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In terms of, expanding the footprint, obviously, and growth, fundraising often plays a key part of that. So, yeah, talking about fundraising, I know you guys recently launched a crowdfunding campaign. So,
Yeah, so crowdfunding has not been going so good. We expected a lot more and better results to be coming from it, but it was a lesson learned. I think it's really a hard thing to go about. We learned a lot from it, but maybe there's some things that we could have done better or differently throughout the last 3 months of the campaign. But we really gave it our all. We couldn't have done any more than we did. And I think it's really just about people being scared because we're a new brand, and the amount of people that are deploying capital right now are slim to none, because you have to look at the state of the market currently. We're not in really a good place. We're about to be in a recession, is what people are saying. So not many people are spending, not many people are investing, and the people that are investing, they're making safe bets. They're not making risky bets. And I guess you could say that we are a little bit of a risky bet, being a new brand and not showing as much as sales as we could. People are just a little skeptical about putting money where we're in a risky play like us. So it is what it is with the crowdfunding. And, like I said, we gave it a shot. We have one more month left in it, and, we're going to play it out and then see what happens after that. But, other than that, yeah, taking meetings with investors every day. We're keeping our feet on the gas, really, because we definitely are going to need that funding soon to be able to really expand and really get this product to where it should be and where it deserves to be. So yeah, like in terms of funding, yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough in general, but yeah, I think it'll come, and we'll get the right partner sooner or later.
for sure. Yeah, I'm sure you guys will. So it sounds like you guys are doing a bifurcated approach. You guys have been, testing out the crowdfunding route, but also taking meetings with traditional investors and kind of going both routes. I think it's smart. You can kind of done to put your eggs in all in one of those baskets, and
Yeah.
maybe the crowdfunding campaign will just kind of could end up being just kind of like a nice supplement to traditional route that you go.
Exactly. Exactly. If it ends up working out in the next month, it ends up working out. And
Yeah.
if it doesn't, then, we'll move on from it. Lesson learned, learned a little bit about a space we didn't know anything about. And yeah, just move on from it. Yeah, I think it's all about finding that one investor that really believes in us. And that I think that's what it's going to take. It's not going to, the more you push somebody that's kind of skeptical about it, the more, why have that person on your team? If they're going to be hesitant, you want that person that's going to be all in, that person or those people that are truly see your vision, and where this product could really go. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah, we're looking for those types. Yeah,
Fundraising is so much just about so much like similar to sales is in terms of like a numbers
yeah,
game. You just got to
it
talk to
is.
enough investors so you find the one that totally jives with the vision, and then it all works out.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, yeah, Ryan, this has been really awesome. Where can people find you? Find you, follow along, and also where they can find the crowdfunding campaign as well.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so you can follow us on Instagram at Boozbox, BOOZBOX. We also have a YouTube channel. We have a TikTok, and we have a Facebook page as well. But yeah, you can follow us on any of those platforms. Most active on Instagram. A lot of good content coming soon. A lot of good collaborations coming soon. So we're excited for that. And the crowdfunding campaign. You can find us on looped.co, LOUPT.co. And our campaign is right there on the front. And yeah, we're still seeking investors until May 15th. So a little less than a month left.
Cool, awesome. Well, I'll definitely share this out and hopefully get some more people coming your way on the crowdfunding campaign too.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Adam. Yeah, I appreciate the time. And yeah, thanks again for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much, Ryan. This has been great.